Let's get a word on this and the other big political stories of the day. Robert Taylor, the political commentator and journalist, is with us. Afternoon to you, Robert.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Nice to have you with us. As we speak, the Kim Ledbetter bill, she is the MP, the Labour MP that first proposed this. It's the terminally ill adult end-of-life bill. It advocates for the legislation. We know the details. 2 doctors and a judge. You can't just turn up at the quacks and say, give me the potion, doc. I want to go now. You've got to be in a certain position to do it. They cite other places around the world that have done this without any of the concerns ever coming to fruition. And Ledbetter and others suggest that the tightness, the robustness of what this country is proposing is probably more strict than anywhere else in the world that has similar bills in place. But is it a good idea, Robert?
Well, it's such a difficult one, isn't it? And it's very interesting to see the debate in the Commons today and see it go pretty much across party lines. Broadly speaking, you've got more Labour MPs in favour and more Tory MPs against, very broadly, but it pretty much goes across party lines. Look, I mean, I personally am deeply sympathetic to the aims of this bill, but I'm just not sure that I trust the state to manage this as it should. We know that the British state has let us down on countless occasions. You know, you could talk about Windrush, you could talk about the Iraq War, for heaven's sake, the postmasters. I have a deep suspicion about what happened in lockdown. So do I trust the British state to manage this? And it is a matter of, as you say, literally life and death. That's my issue with it, not actually the principle. I'm in favour of the principle.
Yeah. And that's the difficulty. A few people have made this. Our last caller, Kelly, that we were just talking to, made that very point. You know, we spend our days, Robert, talking about the ineptitude of our MPs, the lack of quality of our political voices that we've got. And of course, there are some good ones. There's some, and in fact, not just good, really brilliant minds out there. But bearing in mind, we spend a good deal of time discussing the woeful nature of not just individuals in Parliament, but the system within Parliament as well. And here we are almost lending our voice to that on something as contentious and as challenging and disturbing potentially as this.
Yeah, although I have to say, I've been incredibly impressed by the debate today. And often the House of Commons can be Punch and Judy, particularly during PMQs, but not today. It is really thoughtful. It is really respectful. Perhaps that's helped by the cross-party nature of the debate. Yeah. Some of the speeches have been really magnificent, and it's put that chamber in a good light, regardless of what happens today. And it's not just going to become law today. There's going to be a huge process after this. But actually, it's sort of, it's reawakened my faith in what the Commons can do when it really puts its mind to it.
Yeah, like work on a Friday as well. I mean, I think we should add that in as well. This doesn't normally happen on a Friday. Come Thursday evening, they hot-foot it back to their constituencies, etc. So there's something different in that one as well.
There is indeed, and it's all good from that point of view. I mean, whatever happens, there are going to be losers. No one can pretend if it goes one way or the other, life's going to be perfect. It's going to be really imperfect either way. We know the dangers either way. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens. I hope that the vote goes against, but I fear it's going to go in favour.
Yeah, we'll see. In the round about 2:30, we should find out the result of that vote. Let's move to this story, a really curious story. Louise Haigh, the now former Transport Secretary, has had to resign. This is one of those cases where you're sort of told, you've got to resign, so she did. This came after it was revealed that she has a fraud conviction over a mobile phone. It happened before she became an MP back in 2014. It's a terrible look. Was she right to resign, Robert?
Well, she was right to resign only because of the way that her party has weaponised the issue of honesty and integrity, particularly during the Boris Johnson reign in number 10. I thought that the Labour Party went way over the top in the way it weaponised integrity. Just to give you one example, the leader of the Labour Party then was demanding that Rishi Sunak resign as Chancellor of the Exchequer for, get this, arriving early for a meeting and therefore bumping into some sort of leaving do, which was against apparently the lockdown rules that were in place at the time. Yeah. And they gave no mercy at all to Sunak.
No, they all wanted scalps.
They wanted
Left,
to get
right, and
this.
centre.
You've got to resign. You're just under a police investigation. You've got to resign.
Yep.
If you weaponize integrity, you've got to be absolutely whiter than white. So I'm afraid I don't have much sympathy for what's happened to Louise Haigh this morning.
It's interesting that Starmer was aware of this, and I think many people will call that particular aspect of this story into question as well. That before, I think this is when she was Shadow Northern Ireland Minister, so before they won any election or anything like that, he was made aware of it. That might have been the point when, bearing in mind he was trying to be the antidote to all the allegations of Tory sleaze that he had piled on to the Conservatives. That would have been the point where he had gone, really? Somebody with a fraud conviction? I mean, even if it is, in the grander scale, a very sort of minor thing, she says it was a distraction and she just got it wrong. It was an error on her part, what happened, rather than criminal intent. But Starmer, I would have thought, should have known better.
Well, I just wonder if she gave him the whole truth. We're hearing today that there may be a second mobile phone that's part of this story. Maybe Starmer felt he wasn't told the whole truth. The other thing, I mean, I very rarely defend Keir Starmer, but you've got to remember this was a really low-grade misdemeanour by Louise Haigh. It's before she became an MP. She was the victim of a mugging and apparently forgot to say that she'd then subsequently found one item, which was a work mobile phone. So it's a very low-grade misdemeanour.
Yeah.
Should Starmer have not promoted her? I have some sympathy with Starmer for that. But again, because it was a spent conviction, it was before she came an MP. I mean, you can't just have MPs who have never done anything wrong in their entire life. We'd only have Theresa May's, whose main misdemeanour in her life is running through a cornfield when she was 7 years old. You want real people in the House of Commons. But I come back to this point. If you weaponise integrity, as Keir Starmer did and has always done, you can't then complain if your opponents do the same to you.
Yeah. Please don't undermine corn crimes, Robert. That's all I would say. Quite right. On the basis of that. Lasting damage could be caused by 7-year-olds running through the fields of wheat and corn. Let's move to this story. Civil servants in Ed Miliband's Department for Energy Scrutiny and Net Zero flew over 3.2 million miles this year. I mean, you really can't make this up. They took 1,130 flights between them, long hauls, internal trips, 24,000 quid to taxpayers. This is just between January and March, by the way. This is a terrible, terrible look. I would, without even looking at the individuals who took these trips, I reckon I could guarantee that at least 50% of them didn't need to be taken to do whatever it was they were doing.
Haven't they ever heard of Zoom? I mean, that's one of the things since lockdown began. We're all used to working on Zoom. You and I are speaking on Zoom now. It's almost as good as the real thing. Do we really think that all those civil servants needed to be flying to wherever their destination was? I absolutely agree with you, Ian. I think if you're going to preach net zero, you really have to practice what you preach, and that department doesn't seem to be doing so.
Not in any shape or form. Rupert Lowe, the Reform MP, is the one who's sort of come out and criticised this. Keir Starmer, of course, has also faced a backlash for taking 470 delegates on a 5,000-mile trip to COP29. I mean, it's a climate summit. I mean, was there no one in the room before they took 470 delegates that said, whoa, hang on, do we really need to take 470 people to I mean, if it was a conference, I don't know, about trade in Boulogne, then you could go, well, OK, this is literally about the climate, and big centrepiece of that is air travel. And we took 470 people. No one mentioned that.
What were they all doing, Ian? Were they just carrying bags for each other? It's extraordinary that we could have that nearly 500 people to Azerbaijan. I mean, utterly extraordinary. And the Brits, of course, took the whole thing more seriously than most other governments. I think Starmer was the only major leader that was there, just about.
He was, yeah. Hardly anybody turned up of any note. I mean, it was real B-list territory, and then Keir Starmer tagging on the end there.
Well, possibly, I'm afraid to say maybe he is B-list territory these days, who wants to be A-list when it comes to climate change, but no excuse for taking 470 people.
A little bit of breaking news as well. The price of a TV licence, we should just throw this in, Robert, is going to rise by £5 next April. It's currently £169.50. It's going to be £174.50 from next April. I think they're going to struggle to defend this anymore.
That sounds to me like just about an inflationary rise, if I've got my maths approximately right. But, I'm a believer in abolishing the licence fee anyway. I think the BBC should be a subscription channel, and every time the licence fee goes up, it just adds fuel to that argument, I think.
Yeah, spot on. Robert, have a great weekend.